Hey kids, it's Mr. Flar here, hope you're well. It's Wednesday the 27th of September, which means another MCN has flooded through the door today. So I've got 4 papers to review to go through the top stories from the month of September. Stick around and stay tuned. Right, so to the first paper then. This is the one that came out on September the 6th, so it seems a long time ago now. First story I've got here is this one. Now this is kind of old hat a bit because it talks about the spy shots of the Ducati V4 that were leaked heavily all over the internet. I mean, really clear pictures up close of what is actually going to be called the Panigale V4 S, in fact. So interesting that those were leaked. I mean, we'll see in later papers that actually there are much more pictures, much more clear pictures available now. But I thought what was interesting about this is, number one, that they're going to call the new V4 powered bike the Panigale, which I quite like. I think Panigale is a great name. Although looking at these blurry pictures, I'm not quite sure they've captured the looks of the original Panigale, which I love so much and I've mentioned on so many occasions. But I'd be interested to see what you think. We'll look at some clearer pictures in a minute, but great that we can now actually see what the new Ducati V4 is going to look like. So that was just a quickie on that one. Next thing that caught my eye in this paper was one in the letters page. In fact, this is a letter from, who's it from? Somebody called Ian Strutt in Surrey. And he's talking about driverless cars. Remember we were talking about electric cars, or rather the trucks, in the last episode of the paper review, where the government have proposed these convoys of trucks that are all linked together by Wi-Fi and drive themselves effectively. Well, this guy Ian Strutt was talking about accident that happened with a driverless vehicle, where the driverless vehicle was confronted with a trike, you know, a three-wheeler, and a car, and it had to hit one of them. It made the decision to hit the trike. So Ian is saying, does this mean that when electric cars or driverless cars are around, let's not get them too confused, does this mean that they're going to select motorcyclists rather than cars because they do less damage that way, or at least that's what that bit of software said. So very interesting thought. I don't think necessarily the logic holds true, because I'm sure the reason why they did that test was partly to see you know, what the outcome was. So let's hope they come up with a different algorithm to that one, because otherwise us bikers are going to be in trouble come the time of driverless cars. Anyway, just an interesting thought. I thought one of the things that the people that are working on these driverless cars are going to have to work out. How are they going to actually not only decide where the more damage is going to come from, but how easily the person's that is riding the vehicle or in the vehicle are going to be damaged. So a very interesting bit of programming to be done there. Lots more testing before we see those on the road, let's hope. So that was just one from the letters page. Okay, next story I picked out, 2017 Adventure Bike of the Year. A little bit of an odd combination here again, because when they say Adventure Bike of the Year, what they've done is pitted together here the standard BMW R125GS, the KTM 1090 Adventure, the Ducati Multistrada 950, the Multistrada 1200 Enduro, and the BMW F800 GS. So a bit of an odd mix in that some of these are big bikes, some are small. And what MCN is saying is actually these are the best of the best group. These are all bikes that have won their respective category, and they put them up against each other to find the Adventure Bike of the Year. So a little bit unusual, because you would sort of expect that, say, the big GS is going to win over the small GS, and the big Ducati will win over the small Multistrada, you would think. Anyway, so that was the review in here, and the outcome of it, quite interesting. The winner was the 1090 Adventure R, which is a lovely bike. I rode that a few months back. It is beautiful. Second was the Multistrada 1200 Enduro. Third, the GS. Personally, I would have put the GS possibly first out of this group, but that's because I'm heavily biased towards it. Fourth, the F800 GS. Fifth, the Multistrada 950. Very interesting the way that's come out. Well, not really, because it's exactly what you know, you would think the big bikes have won out over the small bikes, but the KTM has actually won. So once again, a bit of a strange grouping for the test, but you know, interesting enough to read. I guess they're going to do some sort of test, so why not that? And then the last story I picked out from this first paper is headlined Go Small, and this is all about the Honda, what we call in this country the MSX125, but it's more commonly known, of course, as the Honda Grom. Little fun, almost like a modern day monkey bike, if you like. I've never actually ridden one of these, but they look absolutely stonking good fun. If you watch RJ, which I'm sure you do, who doesn't watch a Raw Jordanian, then you'll know that he's got one of these, and he, you know, he thinks it's a pretty decent bike. They look quite fun. I think no good if you're a massive person, you're going to look a bit like an ape on a bike, but if you're of sort of medium size, you're going to be all right. And I'd really love to have a go on one. So I saw one of these at my local Honda dealer recently, and sort of put a bit of a hint in that I might want to have a go on one. So I'm hoping that that can happen. But anyway, MCN have reviewed it, and they basically reviewed it as you would imagine. They've said that it's just cool and hysterical. It's a great little bike, and for the money, I think it's about let's have a look. £3,293. Unbelievable. And yes, it does 185 miles per gallon, they're saying, so, which is just nuts figures for something that's just great fun. Maybe we should all be getting those, but I love small bikes and I'd love a go on a little grom. Anyway, that was it for what I picked out of the first paper. The next one, got another 4 stories here to just flash by you. See what you think of these. First one, sorry about this, quite a lot of Ducati in this particular edition of the paper review. The V4 was properly launched by Ducati, and they released all the press specs and so on. So here it is. It looks absolutely stunning. I think probably they've learnt from the success that Aprilia have had with V4s, and that's the way that Ducati are going now with their super bikes. 270 brake horsepower. Sorry, 207. Slip of the tongue there. 207 brake horsepower. And it looks absolutely lovely. It's going to be in the shops, apparently in bikes in 2018, so pretty soon. What else can I say about it? It's 1100cc. It's a 90-degree V4, and I just think it's going to be fantastic in a bike. I can't wait to have a go at one of these if I ever get the chance. They're expecting 88 foot-pounds of torque, and as I say, on sale in some sort of bike. I imagine that Panigale V4S in 2018, so something to look forward to there. So that was the first one that's properly broken cover. Now this second story I've picked out of here, this is unbelievable. So I'm just checking the date. This is definitely the September the 13th edition of the newspaper. This story here, keeping it current, and this is a guy, I haven't got his name handy, a German fella, has taken a BMW Scooter and he's customised it to make what he thinks is a super cool electric motorcycle. Love the idea. I love custom bikes. But I have to say, I don't love this one. It is absolutely hideous. If I hadn't checked the date, I'd have said this was an April the 1st, April Fool's joke. Look at this thing. I mean, that has been battered about badly by the fugly stick. I just mentioned this because I like the idea of customising electric bikes, or indeed any bikes. But just wanted to check, is there anybody out there that thinks this is a good looking bike? Clearly Fritz here does, but my goodness me, it's just, it couldn't be uglier if he had tried. There is, to my mind, no design got into that. There was nothing nice at all. I'm sure it rides, well, I'm not sure it rides nice, but he says it rides nice, but frankly, if it had no fairing at all, I think it would have looked better. Anyway, what do you think of that? Is it just me, or is that really a fugly bike? Anyway, okay, so that's that. Let's move on quickly because my eyes are starting to hurt. Next story I picked out here is one, again, from the letters page. So here we are, trouble getting my leg over, or a leg over is the story. And this is actually from a lady who wrote in, called Wendy Wardale. Very unusual to have women motorcyclists, which is such a shame. When I look at my statistics, I get something like 2% of my views are female, which is, as you can imagine, very troubling for me. But I don't want to analyse that too much. Anyway, the letter here, trouble getting a leg over. I'll just read it. It's a very brief letter. I'll read it to you. Having just returned from the Isle of Man, I was amazed at the number of riders struggling to lift their leg over bikes that appeared to be too tall for them. Any kudos gained by riding the bigger bikes was totally lost when witnessing their ungainly scramble to mount the machines. Which I think is just hilarious, and it's absolutely true. You've probably all seen it. Old blokes like me jumping onto their GSs or whatever, you know, one leg first rather than getting the leg over. It doesn't look good. And I just think this is, you know, an indication, or one of the issues, of the fact that bikes are so darn big these days. Adventure bikes are getting massive, not only heavy but tall as well. I guess they're all designed for Dutch people, who are generally the tallest people in the world, but surely bike manufacturers should design them for the average height European, and I'm not sure that that they're getting that right with the adventure bikes. A lot of people get put off the adventure bikes, the big ones, because you physically can't get your leg over. So although it's quite an amusing letter, I do think that Wendy makes a fair point there. So come on, bike manufacturers, not only give us these lovely big bikes, but give us them with some seat options. Not all manufacturers are about this. Some manufacturers do give us lowered seats and options for lowered suspension and so on. But let's have more of that, because you're just locking out a lot of people from getting into these bikes. So that was that one. Next story here. Now this is a little feature that I love that MCN do. It's their riding tips. It's usually towards the back end of the paper, and this particular edition's tip is all about how to take roundabouts. Now I'm not going to go through how you should ride round a roundabout. I'm sure you've worked that out by now if you're a rider. But I was just going to mention that it just reminded me that roundabouts are one of those things that when I'm on my motorcycle, one of the things that I always find are super risky. I know what I'm doing on a roundabout, but other drivers don't necessarily seem to, do they? These are the places where I seem to have most people pull out on me. I recently had one, actually. I was riding towards Aylesbury, actually, just north of here, and I was coming About to go round a roundabout, I could see the approaches were clear, and I could see, except for one large truck, and I'm in a proper articulated truck of many tons, was coming on my left-hand side, and he appeared to be slowing down. However, once I was on the roundabout, he wasn't slowing down, he kept going, he plainly hadn't seen me. And this happens all the time, but literally, my heart was in my mouth, and this truck passed me with, must have been inches to spare. I thought he was going to kill me, I really did. It's the closest I've ever been to a properly bad accident. Anyway, I carried on up the road and pulled in as soon as it was safe to do so, because my heart rate was through the roof, and I just had to stop the bike and sit on the curb and just calm down, because I thought it was curtains. Anyway, to his credit, he did turn his truck around and came and saw me and apologised. Not that you know, there was much that he could say, because at that point I was a bit of a wobbling wreck. But really, just mention that to say, be super careful on roundabouts, be super careful anyway at junctions, and whenever you're on your bike, just, you know, assume everybody's out there to get you. That's what people say, and that's the way I treat them. But in particular, roundabouts, not only do you have people pulling on or people changing lanes that aren't paying attention on their phones or whatever, but you know, this time of year, coming into autumn, there might be leaves on it, or things like diesel spills are an absolute classic as well. You could easily lay your bike down on one if you hit a diesel patch. So if you're a new rider in particular, be super careful around roundabouts. So just a little public information announcement there for you. Okay, so that was it from that edition. Next one. How are we doing for time? Let me just check. Oh, okay, we're doing okay. I don't want to ramble on too long. I don't want to bore you to death. Okay, next one, this paper. Here we are, another V4, but this time not a Ducati. This is the Norton V4, which has properly broken cover. It's apparently undergoing proper road tests now. This is now with Norton's own engine. They used to, you may recall when they were doing the TT races and so on, they used a V4 engine from the Aprilia. Now Norton have come up with their own thing, with their own engine. It's more powerful, it's 1200cc, it's 200 brake horsepower, and apparently testing is well underway. And they're saying that it should be available, I think, they were saying next year. First bike's just months away, it says here. So, wow, won't it be great to see Norton's on the road? And let's just hope that they've got over those issues that they had a few years back with production, and they can actually knock these out and meet demand. I think it's a good looking bike. I think it's the best looking bike. I've talked about this loads of times before. I think the Panigale and the R1 probably look better, but it's certainly up there with others, and it looks nice. And the fact that it's Norton has to, you know, have massive kudos. I absolutely love the idea of a proper British superbike. So really looking forward to maybe seeing one of those in the wild if you're lucky to. They're going to be a rarity. There won't be many of them, and they'll be super expensive. But anyway, good to know that that is apparently just around the corner. Maybe we've heard this before, but we'll see. Let's take it on face value. Okay, another story here about small bikes. I've mentioned before how much I love small capacity bikes, and there's a lot of snobbery about riding the biggest, best, fastest, but actually for me, I love small bikes. I've got a 250 myself, my Honda CRF. I've got a 125 in the garage at the moment as well, which I'm riding probably more than any other bikes, and they're absolutely great fun. And really pleased to see that Suzuki have brought out a V-Strom version, a 250 V-Strom. I'm hoping I'm going to get to ride this at some point. I don't think there's one available for me yet at my local dealers, but as soon as there is, I'm hoping to get out here. Unfortunately, MCN have given it a bit of a lukewarm review. I think it looks fantastic, but they've given it 3 out of 5 stars and said that basically it just hasn't quite got enough power, which is a bit of a shame because it does look good. But anyway, we'll see. It's got a really smart little dash on it. It looks the business. Great as a first bike if you're just getting into motorcycling. But anyway, look forward to having a go at that. I'm just mentioning it that it's out there, that there's another manufacturer that's focusing a bit more on the smaller capacity end of the market, which is great news as far as I'm concerned. Not only are they fun to ride, but of course they're cheaper, so it makes it much more accessible for newer or younger riders too. Okay, so that was the baby V-Strom. And then come to this feature. This is the 20-year anniversary of the birth of the Yamaha R1. Now, talking earlier about the looks of sports bikes, I think the R1, this is a massive feature, a big spread on all the bikes over the years, by the way. But at the end here, they've got a few pictures of them over the years. And when you just look at these here, it makes you realise just what a good-looking bike the R1 is. Of course, this is purely subjective, it's just my view. But I love the current R1, as I said, and have said for ages. I love the look of this 2006 model. It just looks like a sports bike should look. I love the black and gold colour scheme as well. I'm a right tart when it comes to blingy things like that. I love black and gold together. I think it's as a, you know, it's as a result of the old John Player special thing on Lotus Formula 1 cars when I was a kid. But anyway, I love the 2006. But then when you look back and you look at the 2004 bike, that also looks like a sports bike should look. I mean, if Yamaha could knock out bikes like this then, how come some manufacturers, I'll mention no names, can't put a bit of thought into their sports bikes that make them look just as good? I mean, still that 2004 bike looks super modern to me. Fantastic bikes. I've never owned an R1. I'd very much like to. I've got a little idea in my mind of buying maybe an older bike and taking it to bits and doing it up and putting it back together again, which would be great for a bit of a YouTube series, I think. Although I'm confident at taking it to bits, I'm not so sure about putting it back together again, so we'll see. But anyway, if I did do that, then an R1 would certainly be on the list to have a look at, one of these older ones. Fantastic looking bikes. All right, so that was it for that edition. So then we come to, last but not least, this is today's copy of the paper, and on the front of the paper, the top story is actually the new Ducati V4 again. Sorry that I've kind of over-mentioned this, but they've actually now got a clear picture of the bike being tested here. And it looks pretty good. I think what I didn't like initially about the blurry spy shots was the fact that these lights, this I thought were air intakes, but in fact it's main headlights here with eyebrow lights. These openings just look too big to me and too angular. But actually, given there are lights in there, with those on, it would probably look quite mean. But not sure whether it's going to look in the flesh quite as nice as the current Panigale, but it's certainly not far off. So, so well done Ducati for not, you know, throwing the baby out with the bath water, so to speak, if that kind of analogy works. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so yeah, so that's the road-going V4 bike that's being tested now. I haven't really got anything else to say about it that I didn't mention just now, but other than it's now official, we've got these clear shots and we can clearly see what the thing looks like. It's got a massive exhaust on it to be Euro 4 compliant, which I'm glad to see they have hung underneath. So hopefully it's going to look relatively good from the outset. There's not going to be those hideous pipes coming out the back like other Panigales have had to do to be Euro 4 compliant. And I think that front end, I think I can probably get used to it over time. And I think if, you know, with the headlights on it, would probably look pretty mean. Anyway, really, really good to see that coming on. Can't wait to see one of those in the flesh. Next story here, I just want to raise, Speedmaster theory is bob on. This is just this story that looks like Triumph are about to release another model next Monday, I think it is, October the 3rd, is that Monday? Or it might be Tuesday. And unfortunately, it's a sort of a bobber-based cruiser. I say unfortunately because it's something that doesn't really interest me that much. I enjoyed riding the bobber when I borrowed that a while back. It was a fun bike, but it's not necessarily a bike I would have because it was a bit impractical. This, if indeed this is the final picture, it just looks a bit kind of bit part spin specially, not sure about it. But anyway, the launch, as I say, next Monday, I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect they may well stream it live, or certainly you'll be able to see pictures of the launch on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be loads of people there blogging and stuff. So we'll be able to see exactly what that looks like next week, so probably more on that next review. But good to see Triumph are still knocking out new models. That was that. Oh, and then on the same page, there's an article here about a new Honda Goldwing as well. Again, I'm not a massive fan of these huge bikes, but having just ridden the K1600 bag of the BMW, my interest is more piqued, because I really enjoyed riding that bike actually. Too big for me, but really nice bike to ride. Be lovely to have a go on one of these as well when these come out, the new Goldwing. They're looking quite nice now actually, albeit absolutely massive. And then on this same information-packed page, there's a little story down here, get the lowdown, and this relates back to what we were saying about those big bikes where people can't get their leg over. Triumph have actually now released a low ride height version of their Street Triple R, which actually is the seat height is 45mm less. So instead of 825mm, it's now 780mm, which is going to make it much more accessible to shorter riders, maybe ladies that want to ride them. Hats off to Triumph for doing this. Why don't all manufacturers do this, as I said before? That's just great news that they're starting to think about, you know, can we make these bikes more accessible to everybody? So brilliant on that one. Okay, next story here. What have we got? Here we go again, keeping the sort of ongoing theme of this month's review of smaller bikes. This is the Baby GS. This is the G310GS, which has been long awaited. Very similar bike to the G310R, was it? The one that I rode, yeah, the 310R, that was it, which I rode a few months ago, really liked. This is kind of based on that bike in terms of the engine. It's also built in the same factory, which is an Indian factory. Don't let that put you off. The G310R is perfectly well built, and I'm sure this one will be too, but I think this little Baby GS looks fantastic. Obviously, I'm a GS fan, and I like the way the GS looks. I like its kind of rugged looks. And this little one properly looks like a GS as well. Fantastic. They've done some clever things with it as well. It's a single-cylinder engine, so it ain't going to be particularly powerful. But the way they've mounted the engine, it's actually in reverse, so that the exhaust outlets are actually pointing behind, so it makes the pipework less lengthy and hence less weight. It makes an awful lot of sense. I don't know why more bike manufacturers don't do that, but so that's quite clever. As I say, it also looks very GSy. It's got a proper full digital dash as well. It looks good. And the verdict, again, they've not been particularly kind to it in MCN. They've been at 3 out of 5, basically saying lacks a bit of oomph. and once it gets off road, once you really give it hard going off road, it starts to get a bit, you know, gets out of shape. Suspension's not much cop, they're saying. But anyway, we'll see. Excuse me. We'll see. I'd love a go on this. I've very much put the the alarm bells out that I like to ride this with my friends at the local BMW dealer. As soon as they get one of these in, I'm hoping to ride it. And it'll be interesting to compare it against the G310 and also against the baby V-Strom if I get to ride that as well. So looking forward to seeing that. Great entry bike if you're just getting into motorcycling and you like the off-road look and you like the GS. Maybe this is a way to go. So really good. And it's also quite cheap. What's the price? Just over £5,000 it says here. So yeah, nice bike for the money, I hope. Okay, getting through another couple of stories. Okay, another group test that MCN have done this week in the paper. They're calling it Retrorockets, and they pitted the Triumph Thruxton, the non-R, the cheaper version, against the Honda CB, what is it, the 1100? CB1100 RS, and the standard BMW R9T, which quite amusingly they called here Honda CB11 RS, and in fact it's the BMW, but there we go, they have to get these papers out in a hurry, I expect. One of the reasons why I bring this up is because I rode the R9T last week, the standard, in quotes, vanilla version, if you can call any R9T vanilla, because they are lovely, well-made premium bikes. And without giving too much away, I have to say I really loved it, and that review's coming up in the coming month. I'll tell you a bit more about what I've got coming up in a minute. But so I really loved the R9T, the standard version. Really lovely machine in terms of quality. Bags of character, went really well. Really loved it. In this review, however, I think MCN have put the Thruxton as the winner. I'm not quite sure on what basis other than price, because it's at least it's about £2 less than the R9T. They're saying if you want something a little bit different, then go for the Thruxton because of the cafe racer looks. It's a little bit different to, you know, bikes that you see out there. If you want something every day, a bit more all-rounded, then go for the R9T. And then the CB1100 comes up kind of at the rear, basically saying that it feels a bit gutless compared to the others. But again, nice review, worth reading if you're, you know, in the market for one of those bikes, and do stick around for my review of the R9T soon. Okay, so last but not least, for the articles out of the papers this month is this one. MCN Riding is the feature. Again, they put, MCN are trying to, you know, they're very diverse in the sorts of articles that they have, and here's one about a riding route that's actually in the southwest of Scotland. Starts at a place called Girvan, goes via Newton Stewart, New Galloway, and up to Elvenfoot. It's only 90 odd miles, 97 miles long, so I'm not sure if it's there's enough of it to warrant me making a trip up there to do it, but I do fancy the idea because it being in southwest Scotland means it's a bit more accessible to us in the south of England. So really just mention this to see if any of my Scottish viewers have done this, whether this is actually worth venturing up for. It looks like it might be, because I love riding in Scotland, and I've got some more videos of me riding in Scotland coming soon. More about that in a minute. So is this one worth doing? And then also on the same page, they've regurgitated the North Coast 767, as MCN call it, which is the North Coast 500 plus a bit. This is the route that I did earlier in the year, and I've got a series on my GS doing this, which has been quite well received. I really enjoyed that route. If you haven't seen that series, check out my playlist on that. But that's one to do in the summer. If you've not done that ride, then for me, I just don't think there are any roads in the UK that beat that northwestern tip of Scotland. Is just fantastic on a bike. Okay, there we go. So that's it for this month's paper review. Hope that's been of some interest. I thought I'd just take the opportunity actually to tell you what I've got planned coming up for the rest of this month, if you're a regular viewer and you care. So I've got a few things coming up. I've got the rest of my Wales trip, which I think I've got another, those come out on a Friday, by the way, if you haven't twigged. I produce my videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. If I've got a tour underway, then they're always out on a Friday. It's kind of a Friday treat is the tour. So the next Wales tour video will be out this coming Friday, and then there are another 2 episodes after that. Rapidly following from that, and it'll be the month after, so in November time, there's another set of tour videos, but on my CRF 250 where I'm in the Trossachs in Scotland. That is fantastic, some amazing scenery up there, just at the back end of summer, so that's one to look forward to. But that's next month. Coming up the rest of this month, I've got some great bike reviews planned and in the can. I've ridden the GSX 250R, the little Suzuki. That's worth looking for. I've already mentioned that I've got the R9T, the standard version. That'll be published this coming month. I've ridden the XADV, the Honda, which is the sort of bike that thinks it's a scooter, or scooter that thinks it's a bike. That's well worth watching. That's great fun. I've got 1 or 2 little videos about things that I've bought. A number of people have asked about the bike dryers that you sometimes see in my videos where I'm cleaning bikes and stuff. So I'm thinking about doing a video just on that. That's not in the can yet. That's just sort of in my head. Talking of scooters, I'm riding the Yamaha T-Max DX, or I have ridden it. It's in the can, and that review is going to be published on Tuesday, October the 3rd, so next week. That's one to look out for. And also I'm going to be doing some scrambling on the Triumph Scrambler, so another one coming up in the next month. There's a whole load more as well coming up, but just to give you a little flavour of the stuff that's coming along. Okay, so that's about it for this video. Love to read your comments. Anything I've said, if you disagree with what I've said, stick comments below. Love to read it, or if there's anything else you want to say, whop it down there. Let's have a look. That would be great. If this is the first time you've been to my channel, be great to have you along. Do hit that subscribe button. That way you can get to see everything I do. I don't just do newspaper reviews, but I do trips and tours, how-tos, product reviews, and bike reviews. There is a rhyme in there I'm kind of developing. There's going to be a new catchphrase there, I think. But anyway, yeah, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and that way you get notified about new videos as they go up. Okay, that's it for now. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Till then, this has been the Mr. Them Fly. Cheerio.